So there's a small topic I always wanted to talk about but never fully decided on because it was never big enough to make a full video on. But then Chris Stuckman and George R.R. Martin happened, so I just thought, you know what, why not? And especially because the subject, no joke, fascinates me to no end. If there are two movies coming out and one is perceived as good and the second one less than good, why do we feel an inclination to point out the latter's badness more than to celebrate the first's victories? Why is it that I'm so fascinated and prone to pointing out the flaws more than the good stuff, you know? Am I doing it because of malice? Or is there a very human and positive explanation for this? Or does that make me an anti-fan or a clout chaser with a hidden agenda of making the world a miserable place?
But I didn't cheer. I stood right up and started shouting, "This isn't what happened last week! Have you all got amnesia? They just cheated us! This isn't fair! He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car!"
Or can the story be told from a different perspective? I only have an intuitive knowledge of the fact that my intentions are in fact pure, and I'm gonna try to form those into actual articulate arguments. And through doing this, I'm gonna speak of internet criticism as a whole. If anything, none of this is truly or willingly done by malice or bad intentions, or for money even. I mean, money is good, but if it was my main motivation, I think I would put more of an active effort into posting a video more than twice a year, maybe. I really should start doing that. Making critical content is just something that appears to be the most fulfilling and appetizing to my creativity in writing for some reason. But what the hell is that reason? I think statements like Martin's are a combination of multiple different things. The dread of negativity has been around always, but there used to be a time when on platforms like YouTube, content such as film criticism was quite a novel, hence celebrated thing. For the first time, random people on the internet outside of the industry were given a platform to call out the industry and films for things that people within it would never be able to speak about or criticize. This was the first time a normal audience member was given a microphone and a stage. It was a very refreshing and hopeful development where the audience itself was given a voice outside of just numbers on IMDb or something, which changed how we perceive and judge media like forever. I think most people of modern times cannot even comprehend what that meant at the time. But in 2024, the concept of critical content creation is not at all novel or revolutionary. Overexposure is the mortal nemesis of all things. Therefore, not only is the fact that we can create hour-long essays about how stupid the new Barbie movie was is unimpressive, it's also expected, it's stereotypical, and frankly, for many, it's quite annoying. I will be the first to admit that there is probably some semblance of legitimate argument behind the concerns about the current state of film content. That being that there are certainly a lot of skeptical, cynical, and overly critical content creators out there whose sole purpose is to exploit and generate clout. Even so, I would also argue that the problem with that is never the critical or negative nature, but the dishonesty, quality, and purposelessness of the film content and its creator. I'm thinking those thousands of channels that keep posting overly dramatic, false, and purposeless content like Bob Iger said Kathleen Kennedy or over, bitch. Like 10 times a week or something. We get it, we don't like her either, but stop it. But even then, that type of content is like a drop in the ocean compared to the articulate and passionate essay pieces that are being posted on this website every day. And to combine all of that under one umbrella of anti-fandom just for the sake of it, just because they share a trait of being critical, is quite dull, let me say. A lot of superficial and surface-level thinkers will refuse to consider the probability that negative opinions could come from a place of care and concern, and actively subscribe to the notion that negative content equals clout chasing over dramatic content, which it doesn't. But that does not answer the question, why so critical and why so often critical? But before we answer those questions, let's have a word from today's sponsor, Factor. As someone whose entire self-employed life revolves around screens and staring at those screens, it gets pretty tough for me to prep for a good nutritious meal, if I remember to feed myself at all. But hey, Factor 75 is a meal delivery service that prioritizes your health and comfort, and offers a perfect solution to the problem most of us are probably having in this stressful and fast-paced lives of ours. Instead of spending a good amount of nerve cells and hours just to come up with a fitting meal idea, and even more on figuring out nutrition, and even some more on getting those groceries, Factor 75 will do all of that for you and deliver a perfect breakfast, lunch, or dinner that comes together in minutes straight to your doorstep. Factor 75 will take into account your dietetic preferences like low-calorie, keto, vegetarian, vegan. With more than 27 weekly meal options and 4 to 18 meals a week, there's something for everyone, and you can change your preferences, plans, or food options whenever you want. My favorite part of this is that it can easily help you avoid those fast food services, but still deliver delicious, nutritious, quick, and fun resolutions to your tummy needs. Get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life using my link. That means you can choose 2 free wellness shots from 3 available flavors for every order while you are an active subscriber. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video, and now let's go back to our questions. I would like to say that our critics and us critics have much more in common than some of us would like to admit. That being that we are very vocally, strongly, and equally frustrated about things we dislike, except one of us dislikes billionaire companies that keep wasting all financial and creative efforts and resources, and one of us really can stomach the fact that negativity is a primal part of human existence. It's easy to criticize someone for being too pessimistic and negative, while also ignoring your own bias and basic human psychology behind all this. Because as much as people try to paint us as negative Nancys of YouTube and devils who are corrupted by the dark side and numbers and money, even outside of movies, all humans get obsessed with disasters and shit all the time. Because you know what? Shipwrecks are fascinating, and that's just how our brain works. Just for once, think about every time you have become aware or celebrated a ship for not wrecking, a car for not crushing. I'm waiting. We like to clown on people when they clap when a plane lands successfully. Why is that? Shouldn't we be celebrating the good things? Yes. We probably should be celebrating good and positive things, but that's just not how we function as humans. And to argue that in the old times we celebrated only positivity is redundant and false. We have always been this way. It's just much more evident and accessible now. There's a reason why if Titanic made a successful trip and sailed without a problem in 1912, you would never even hear about its existence today. Yeah, I would've. No, you wouldn't. However, its tragic and dramatic wrecking story is something that has kept all of us fascinated for more than a century now. Wonder why? It's only logical that bad art fascinates us. Imagine a room full of award-winning, what are known to be the most talented people on the planet. They have the budget of hundreds of millions. They have all the resources. They can get as many smartest, most creative people aboard. They can take as much time as they want. If a movie made in those circumstances turns out to be good, sure, why would I be surprised? The odds are it better be good. It has everything it needs to be great. That film turning out to be anything but good, however, logically should defy all the odds. But nevertheless, here we are. So of course, we are fascinated by an unsinkable ship that sinks. How can we not wonder why, or how, or by whom, and who the heck are you to judge us for it? It's just a simple human logic that is more than just negativity bias. Tragedies, paradoxes, illogical shit, drama, questionable decisions, anomalies challenge us, fascinate us, and keep us entertained. Not just as film critics, but as humans. It's like a little mystery to solve for us, like a puzzle. This is why so many of us keep going on and on about things like Star Wars. That shit is fascinating as hell, and it will never ever stop being fascinating. How can a thing that has unlimited resources, hype, endless amounts of money, ability to hire any and every talent on Earth, not only fail, but completely tarnish? This is the type of mystery-solving game challenge that a decently made film with a decent reception would never ever pose to a content creator. And the ugly truth is, there's nothing fascinating about an already solved puzzle. There's nothing fascinating about an unsinkable ship not sinking. There's nothing interesting or intriguing about a $200 million investment turning out to be an okay film. It's ugly, but it's true. Would we have been considered better and much more positive people if we only celebrated the good? Sure. But that would mean holding ourselves to a standard that no other human ever lives up to, simply because it's not in our nature. And the only difference between me and some Sarah is not the lack of frequency of negative opinions and fixations, but the fact that differently from Sarah, my equally negative thoughts are public, evident, and publicly open to people having opinions on my opinions. The world has not become any more negative, nor has our judgment of media or art. This amount of judgment and the number of opinions has always been out there. But these voices could only ever reach as far as the molecules in the air could take them. And as long as the negativity was out of sight, it was out of mind. And the biggest difference is that this time we are all collectively plugged into a worldwide tower speaker, ramped up to a full volume. And historically most absolutist idiots will choose to put a whole blame on abstract concepts like negativity onslaught, or choose to only punish singular individuals for our collective systematic and societal flaws that support and platformize us in the first place. And when people choose to criticize the content creator for fixating on negatives rather than positives, by this action they themselves morph into the subject of their own criticism. Someone who chooses to fixate and negatively criticize content they dislike when they had a choice of praising any one of millions of positive content creators instead. This just goes to show that no matter how level-headed and righteous you think you are, this is a vicious paradoxical rabbit hole for everyone. Negativity is almost always going to be a huge part of any aspect of life, and as much as we might not like and assure ourselves that we are above it, forcing ourselves and others to reject that primal part of our being is not only going to feed back into and strengthen this unbreakable cycle, but also make us all feel shitty, inauthentic, and ashamed for being something that we simply are.
This is called the joyless laughing guy.
Joyless laughing guy.
Yeah, I'll try to do it. I can do it sitting down.
Okay.
If we did, it would be less negative. However, that would not change the fact that the entire rest of social media would be full of content like Chris Stuckman's Madam Web video. Let's start off by Mark Manson quote: "The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience, and paradoxically the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience." I know a lot of people will clown on me for saying this, but it's true anyway. People misunderstand and underestimate video making as its own art form. I'm not saying that this piece of garbage video of mine is art like Mona Lisa is art. I'm just saying that this is most definitely my artistic expression because it really is just that. And in my opinion, for a lot of us, at least ones that actually care to create good content, our work is our artistic and creative outlet. But most people don't see it that way, because why would they? It's free. We're doing this for free, on a social media platform that's free. Art could only be found on expensive places like Netflix, right? Artistic expression is most fueled by strongest emotions, and oftentimes the most inspiring emotions happen to be very much negative ones. Think about most passionate musicians. Most songs are about heartbreak or fucked up situations, but no one blames them for using negativity, heartbreak, or sadness as a source of inspiration, because they are serving us, right? They take negative emotions and use that as a fuel to create art and entertain us. But videos cannot do that because they're on YouTube. They're made by idiots who only care about money and views, right? I know that a lot of people will again clown on me for comparing making videos to the real art that is songwriting. But then you tried to recreate a Space Odyssey intro in 2 hours without a functioning GPU just because you heard some dude talk shit and you want to decorate text that you haven't even written yet. And Then let's talk. In my personal case, even though my journey started off by willingness to share my thoughts and opinions on modern cinema, I quickly discovered that mumbling my not at all original or important thoughts into a microphone was not going to be enough to maintain the enthusiasm and motivation to keep me stimulated enough to keep going. So I started to concentrate more on creative and artistic parts like crafting interesting visuals, nailing the editing pace, humor, and sound mixing. Watching movies and developing opinions on them stayed an important part of my process, but it has become a gateway to my passion of crafting a good overall video in all fields. So whenever a piece of media manages to inspire and excite me enough to get the little wheels in my brain turning, I am eternally grateful to it. And whether this happens in a negative or a positive manner is completely irrelevant to me in that hopeful moment of excitement of embarking on a new challenge. And shaming content creators for their nature that, just like musicians, makes us much more prone to be strongly influenced and excited by negative things is simply hypocritical. Additionally, I have a statement to make. Negative criticism is not inherently negative. And to explain myself, let me tell you a story. The first video you will see on my channel is me indirectly dunking on the Rise of Skywalker. But what a lot of people don't know is that that video was supposed to be my farewell to Star Wars and one last fuck you to the Rise of Skywalker. I'm not making this up for a dramatic effect. It really was just that. It was never meant to go viral or start up my career. It was just me trying out self-therapy at 17. I just needed to get the unhealthy level of hatred I had for that movie out of my system. But you know what happened? Not only did I manage to do exactly that, but also that video took something that only evoked negativity and sadness within me and turned it into something incredibly positive. The process of making that one video, turning something that only used to enrage me into a joke, taking a piss out of it, and turning it all into a satire, made me enjoy Star Wars for the first time in years.
But no, here's what I think though.
Okay.
I only write when I'm angry or sad or something because that's when I just have to write, and I only will work if I absolutely have to. If I'm having a good time, and I'm happy and things are going really well, why would I want to stop what I'm doing to go and write at the piano?
Yes!
And ironically enough, a year after that, people found that video and they laughed at it too. And the most important takeaway from this story is that even though we might consider ourselves to be artists with creative visions, at the end of the day, when the video is up, we are clowns, whether we like it or not. Just like musicians or filmmakers, we entertain people. That is our purpose. In our heads, we could be making a Nobel Peace Prize winning project on YouTube and people will still watch it while they're absent-mindedly pouring milk into their cereal in their underwear or half asleep pooping on their toilet, waiting to be entertained. And even if we are evil masterminds puppeteering audiences and deceiving them into thinking that modern art is less than good, why are we responsible for their gullibility and willingness to trust, agree, support, and platformize us? Or maybe we are actually creating something valuable, negative, positive, something that people seek out to find solace in. Thinking that we spread negativity is not only ignorant, but it's also mainly stupid. Most critical YouTubers are just taking their overly negative experience and turning it into something entertaining that people can actually enjoy and have fun with through their videos. How can creating engaging and enjoyable content that people come back to willingly over and over and over again be labeled as wrongdoing? Through making fun of the Rise of Skywalker, that video gave me and millions of others the ability to actually have fun with this otherwise terrible and depressing film. Again, something that the Rise of Skywalker by itself was completely incapable of doing. People willingly watch critical video essays or movie commentaries because they have fun with them, because they enjoy them. How could that be seen as a thing that negatively impacts society? And this is the thing that I hate the most about this entire discourse, that it either willingly or unwillingly misunderstands most of the critical film content. Most of our critics misjudge and assume that our motivation is the same as our intention. It isn't. Whenever I make a video about a bad movie, it's usually to fill up a void that film created within me, and to entertain people through my own negative experience. That is a huge part of the reason why I mostly gravitate towards dissecting bad movies. The explanation for the negative stuff, at least in my case, is very simple. The main purpose of the mainstream media is entertainment, and if a film on its own fails to deliver a good quality content, I'm left to cope with the inedible trash that I just experienced. Babe, it's Mormon time. It's especially hard if a film is a part of the legacy or a franchise you really want to love. This is not to say that we should not put an active effort into remaining positive and see positive sides of things, but that does not mean that we should belittle or shame other people for expressing their authentic opinions, even if they're exclusively negative, especially if those opinions are not forced on you and you have a full right and choice to ignore, instead of spitting negative judgment on someone else's negative judgment. Well, that's hypocritical. You could also ignore bad movies. Yes, but that's not the same. We don't falsely advertise our videos to be different than they actually are, promising an enjoyable experience, only to coax them into watching us, only to end up disappointing them and wasting their money. So I don't think I clarified this enough, so I'm gonna come back in and try to explain a bit more. I'm not saying that there's no clickbait on YouTube, that there's no false content. However, in terms of positivity versus negativity, no one actually advertises their videos as falsely positive. If the video is very much negative, it's very much advertised as a negative video, so you have a right and ability from the get-go to ignore it. So no, it's not the same. Most of the movies I talk about disliking on my channel are the ones that I didn't like, against my own wishes. Most of critical people are just fans who are forced to reject almost all the new content because of the lack of quality, but also don't want to completely reject the art form and have to find their own ways of enjoying it and entertaining themselves since the films won't do it for them, which in my opinion is the opposite of negative. It's a wonderful thing. I think it's a very superficial and blindly consumerist take to say that if you're not celebrating the corrupted billionaire studios and their mediocre efforts, you're not celebrating the film as an art form, or you're an anti-fan spreading hate. People have to learn to differentiate between the two. Even despite all this talk, there is a single huge black cloud hanging over every one of my words. Because despite all this, I haven't made a single legitimate argument towards the truthfulness and authenticity of our reactions and evaluations. Since so much of the criticism thrown our way has to do with the idea that our heavy pessimism, outlook, and evaluation of the current state of the film is believed to be fabricated for money and or clout, hence making the world seem like a worse place to live in than it actually is. Hence evilly spreading negativity. Are films really that bad to excuse the extent of our negativity? Or is Martin right? And we are all so swallowed up by negativity bias that we look at masterpieces like Game of Thrones Season 8 and still make hour-long criticisms shitting all over it. This is almost a bottomless argument, and to answer it, let me annoy the daylights out of you. No one could confidently claim such criticism since confirming/debunking it requires knowing the real absolute and precise measurements and calculations of the extent of badness of modern cinema. I'm not saying that people who claim this are wrong, nor that they're right, simply that they are as baseless as it gets. Trying to claim objectivity through a subjective lens is a losing battle, no matter how you look at it, especially considering that these specific statements are always going to be based on personal assumptions and speculations, since no one besides me could ever reach inside my mind to confirm or deny the fact that I truthfully think that Barbie is actually atrocious. However, to not completely delegitimize anyone, let's talk about the ugly side, where this statement might ring kinda true. As they say, Even the broken clock is right twice a day. I don't even want to know how many brain cells I lost saying that. Social media does have a tendency of becoming quite a notable negative echo chamber sometimes. And not just for a consumer, but for a creator too. Craftsmen take a lot of their cues of what to create from what they have been and are being actively rewarded for. And we have already established what internet, aka the society behind it, likes to reward the most. Titanics. And of course, unconsciously, it is a nagging thought behind all the creators' heads. Creating intriguing content. Various people do this to various degrees. However, before you go crazy on me, let me remind you that the fraction of ugly truth in that statement is exactly just that. A fraction. Some content creators may be more inclined towards the content that is highly rewarding, but that impulse of intrigue does not have to completely ring true for all of us, nor override or be mutually exclusive of our truth and integrity. But if I could ever state that there's such thing as absolute truth, and if there was a magical creature who successfully mastered the art of pinning the absolute film objectivity, it would have a voice of Quentin Tarantino telling you that yes, Marvel movies are actually that bad. Oh wait.
What's your analysis of, or your thought on current state of cinema?
It makes the 80s look fucking great.